Well, thank you, Chairman Thompson and Ranking Member Smith. And I want to thank the witnesses for their valuable testimony today and for holding this hearing. Mr. Pomelo, you mentioned in your opening statement, you highlighted a little bit just kind of the unprecedented measures that we have engaged in as a Congress when it comes to response to the coronavirus. And you look at the amount of money, over $3 trillion that we have appropriated and put into the economy, really unprecedented amounts. That's the most money we've ever spent in the history of our country in this short period of time in terms of our response. In addition, we allowed the Fed through the CARES Act the ability to put another $3 to $5 trillion in liquidity measures into the economy. And so all of those things obviously have been, particularly the appropriated money, have been put on the proverbial federal credit card. And we didn't have a rainy day fund. And so this continues to add to our debt. We're up to over $25 trillion this country's in debt. And that debt bomb that has been created is going to cause us problems down the road. And I'm going to have you comment on that in a second, Mr. Pomelo, if I can. But I think as we look at, as part of this hearing today, and we look at what are the next steps to incentivize growth, to allow people to prosper and thrive and get people back to work and get to the economy that we had pre-COVID, which was the best in my lifetime in terms of unemployment, in terms of opportunities, in terms of jobs, in terms of stock market, all of those things. And I think we almost have to look sector by sector and business entity by business entity in terms of who's been disproportionately affected moving forward. And obviously, it's also, I think, important, and I believe, obviously, health and safety is the #1 priority that we have to look out for as we continue to have COVID without a cure or a treatment or a vaccine. But obviously, shutting down the economy indefinitely will not accomplish the goals of safety and health. And so, again, we have to find that balance, that measured approach moving forward to do that. And I believe in order to restore our economy to its pre-COVID strength, it's essential that workers and consumers are safe participating in their workplace. That's why we as Republicans and a number of Democrats support tax incentives to help businesses to take the steps necessary to ensure that this is the case and that we're able to open businesses safely. That brings me to a piece of legislation that I want to mention called the Clean Start Back to Work Tax Credit Act that I am sponsoring with Stephanie Murphy of Florida. And we believe this is, again, looking at what are the priorities as businesses begin to open up so that people can go back to work safely. We want a clean, safe, sanitized workplace. And what our bill does is, in short, the legislation creates a temporary tax credit to help businesses cover the increased costs of training, to help properly sanitize surfaces, cleaning supplies, and PPP as they start to reopen. And qualifying entities can apply for a 50% refundable tax credit of up to $25,000 per unique location and up to $250,000 maximum. We believe ideas like this are very, very important. And secondly, again, when we think sector by sector, another one that's been disproportionately affected has been the beauty industry, barbershops, beauty salons. In many states, they're just starting to open. And so, again, I've introduced a piece of legislation with Congresswoman Del Benny and also with Senator Portman and Senator Cardin that is called the Small Business Tax Fairness and Compliance Simplification Act. And in short, our goal is to extend Section 45B, currently available to restaurants, to the beauty industry and barbershops because they have been disproportionately affected. And so we believe that this is important for that industry and look forward to working on behalf of that. Having mentioned that, Mr. Pomelo, I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on my earlier comments about the amount of debt that we continue to create in this country and the ramifications of that, and the fact that we're not going to be able to spend our way out of this corona epidemic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So even before the pandemic, the CBO projected that federal debt held by the public as a percent of GDP was around 80% this year and would climb to about 97% in 2030. And you mentioned the additional spending the relief would be over $3 trillion. It's about $4 trillion, but that doesn't even account for the slower economic output that we are already seeing that's going to increase that more. So it's certainly something to keep in mind. But as I mentioned in my testimony, I don't think it's something to be concerned right now. I think the cost of doing too little in economic relief is greater than doing too little. So I think, and if you just look at the indicators here for U.S. Treasury rate, it's below 1%, and federal spending on interest expense has been below 2% for many years and has continued to be below 2%. So we're not seeing that it's crowding out too much more important government spending. So it seems we still have space. That said, it's certainly something that will need to be addressed in the future, and I'm hoping it's addressed after we have solved the current economic issue.
Thank you. Gentlemen, time has expired. Ms. Moore, you're recognized